Amen. I am actually going to preach from up here, and the reason why is because I can stay more on point if I have my notes right in front of me, and if I stay on point, it means that we can move through our worship more efficiently. So, with that purpose in mind. So we hear some really amazing accounts in our readings this morning. There's stories about expectations, transformations, and healing love. The name of my sermon is Who Let the Dogs Out? And if I had my MP3, I would do Who Let the Dogs Out? Woof, woof, woof. But that's a song from the 90s by the Baha Men, if you're not familiar with it. And it reminds us about our expectations with dogs. In our society, dogs have so many different roles. And as I studied art history in college, you look at medieval paintings and you look at Renaissance paintings, and they're full of symbolism. And one of the symbols in these paintings are dogs. You'll see dogs at the manger in nativity scenes. You'll see dogs in wedding pictures. The Arnolfi wedding portrait by Jan van Eyck is one of them, where you'll see a little dog at the foot of the bride. And these dogs have mixed metaphors. There's a sign of faithfulness and fidelity. And then there's sort of this fear of dogs and our desire to cage them and put dogs in their right place. And there are reasons for that. I mean, some dogs have health concerns. I mean, there are rabies. Some dogs are ferocious. But to automatically cage all dogs and put dogs in a certain place sort of strips dogs of their role in our society. And just the place of dogs as a symbol of fidelity shows the transforming power of dogs. And if you've ever been in ministry where people bring dogs to people who are shut in or people who are ill, the dogs transform. And if you have your own dogs at home, you can be in a bad mood, and right when you come home, the dog will transform you. And so I was thinking about dogs and my growing up in southern Arizona. And I'm sure most of you have been out to Sanavir Mission. And when you're out there, those dogs that are running around in the parking lot, and those are affectionately called mission dogs. And mission dogs are known for being a bit scrappy. And they're not dangerous. I've never seen a dangerous mission dog, but they're not the kind of dog that you would just run up to and hug. They've been around the block. But the thing is those dogs are an integral part of the life in the mission area. And the dogs are actually, sometimes I've even seen them wander into the church. And they're left alone, but they're also embraced. And I actually had a dog that I used to accuse her of being a mission dog because she had sort of that scrappiness about her. And she was a rescue. And she had that look, that lean look of a mission dog. But she was one of the best dogs that I ever had. And so I moved beyond my expectation of what this mission dog was and brought her into my home. And she was able to transform my life and actually make a wonderful connection with my daughter, who at the time was having the difficulties that many teenagers have. And that dog would comfort her and showed her love. So, with the imagery of dogs in mind, I first want to talk about the words that James has for us. They're pretty harsh, and they're a bold reminder that we just can't talk the talk, that we have to walk the walk. And as Protestants, Martin Luther came up with this idea of that we are justified by our faith. And that comes from Paul's letter to the Romans. And it is true, we are justified in our faith. But sometimes, as intellectual Protestants, sometimes we think, well, that's enough. That's enough. That's all we need to do is just have this faith. And then James reminds us, well, you know what? Faith without action is meaningless. I think of the metaphor of Pinocchio. Pinocchio, the little wooden puppet, is magically sort of brought to life as by the blue fairy, but Pinocchio is still a wooden boy. Pinocchio isn't real. And so he may look like a boy, but he's not a boy. But at the end of the story, through his self-sacrifice and learning, he's transformed. He's transformed into a real boy. And this is what happens to our faith. There's sort of this fake wooden faith that we can have. But if we pair that faith up with action, with real love, it can be transformed into real faith, the real way of God. And going to either way really doesn't cover the fullness of God. If you just live in words, that's not enough. If you live just in action, that's not enough either. That was the problem that drove Luther to question the institutional church, because it was just here, pop some money into this box, and the soul springs up to heaven. And it's not just actions and it's not just words; it's both. So we come up to the story in the gospel, and it's kind of troubling. When I taught this, or actually we taught this in Fun Day School a few months ago, the stories sort of recycle around. One of the students, I asked them what they thought about Jesus saying, well, this is meant for the children, not the dogs. So he's really calling this woman a dog. And I asked the students, it's like, what do you think Jesus meant? And they said, Jesus is being mean. And yes, Jesus is being mean. And I think Jesus, as a reflection of divinity and humanity, he's being human. In the story we hear, he is just tired. It sounds like he's looking for a place to kind of hang out. Place just to have a moment to himself. And all these people are just crowding around him. And he finds that place. And he just sits down. And then this woman shows up. And she says, Lord, would you heal my daughter? And I can just see Jesus maybe sighing and rolling his eyes, saying, I just sat down. And so Jesus kind of snaps at her. He says, I came here to bring food for the children, and they need to eat it first. You're going to have to wait, because you're a dog, and the dogs have to wait. Where's Jesus' compassion? Where is this Jesus that's embracing the other, the stranger? Well, I think Jesus is answering in a way that was very expected in that region of his country. This is somebody who's an outsider, somebody who's discounted, somebody that isn't really thought of as anything. Plus, she's a woman. And so, for Jesus, being a Jewish rabbi, saying, you know what? This isn't for the dogs to go away, was expected. And who hasn't been in a place like that where you just want to say, okay, go away? But she doesn't take it. She doesn't take it. He may be using his words in a hurtful way. And there's some theories that, well, maybe he's testing her. But I really believe that in this moment, Jesus is being human. And so the instinct is for her to slink away, to live in that woundedness that she's been given over and over and over and over. Go away, dog. But she doesn't take it. And she comes back and she says, but you know what, Lord? Even the dogs get scraps from the table. The scraps that fall down, even the dogs get it. And I think in that moment, the light comes on in Jesus' head. He said, yeah, you're right. And one of those aha moments, I think, is because she is listening to Jesus. That's exactly what Jesus would say to a Pharisee. It's exactly what Jesus would say to somebody who's dismissing someone on the edges. So she has embodied his words. And she was able to feed it back to him in his moment of weakness and nourish him. And in that, she gets healed. And I think Jesus gets transformed in that moment too. Now, many of my UCC colleagues think that Jesus learned something important. My theology is more Jesus was reminded of something he forgot. But whatever it is, there's a transformation in action. In action. And so she pushed back, and that's what happened. So, in our lives today, what's being pushed on us? What cruel words, what non-godliness, what faith that is hollow is being pushed on us? Who is being called a dog? Who is being caged up? What are we called to do? And how do we, like the Syrophoenician woman, how are we able to embody the words of Christ and put it right back out there? Who let the dogs out? Well, in my theology, Jesus let the dogs out. And in the generous, active faith that we are called to be, who is the dog in your world? Perhaps it's you, perhaps it's someone else. But how do we act as liberators? Woof, woof, woof.